Good morning and welcome to the Morning Market Call. I'm Julie Kellett. Joining us today, Rustin Fulmer, a second-year MBA student, also a member of Cougar Capital. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
Great. Today we want to talk about the global economy and examine some countries that have seen explosive growth recently. And we hear a lot about China, but today our focus will be India. And Rustin, being an expert, having lived there for a few years, will be able to share his experiences on what development has been going on. Rustin, can you first off just talk about the history of business in India?
Sure. It would probably surprise a lot of people, but India in the 1700s, 15 to 1700s, had one of the largest economies in the world, larger than Europe, in fact. About 25% of the world's GDP, pretty much because of the spice trade. And then during colonialization from Britain, they had one trade partner, and so they went from 25% to 3% in a matter of years. And then when India gained their independence in 1947, they basically depended largely upon agriculture. And so they had a shrinking GDP throughout that history, and they were a socialist state. And so by 1991, India was bankrupt. And so they had to, Manmohan Singh, who was the finance prime minister, opened up the Indian economy. He privatized a lot of businesses, liberalize the economy and market policies, and open it up to a world economy in 1991.
Okay, so how have things changed since 1991? What do you see in the business horizon for the future?
Okay, so in 1991, basically they were able to take in foreign investment, and they opened up part of their GDP as far as export output. And so they went from just strictly being agricultural to being industrials and especially services. So the services sector, I think everybody's pretty familiar with all the services businesses that are in India.
Sure.
But that makes up 57% of their business development as well as economic output at this point.
Okay. So in comparison to China, when do you see India becoming this world power in population and kind of service industry? Well,
most experts have India overtaking China by 2030 in terms of population.
Okay.
And what that does is even though there's a large economic disparity in the country, by 2030 you'll have more people that are educated with master's degrees in the workforce than we have in the entire United States.
Wow.
So you have a large educated workforce that speaks English. So the services economy is not going anywhere for India, and China sees it more. They have more of an industrial setup, and in India you have more of a services sector and educated workforce.
Yeah. So how do you foresee the future of China going now? If it's service-based, we've got a highly educated workforce. What do you foresee the future to be?
Right. So Jim O'Neill with Goldman Sachs in 2006, he came up with the term BRICS, and we're all familiar with that because of our beloved global professor. But India is projected by Goldman Sachs in their emerging markets division to by 2020 to have their GDP output quadruple.
Okay.
And that by 2043 they're going to overtake the U.S.
Oh, wow.
in terms of GDP output. And so in order for those to happen, there's several things that they must do. They've got to kind of tone down the bureaucracy, the corruption, the poverty, economic disparities. There's a lot of things that have to happen, as well as agriculture output has to be improved. They have a large amount of arable land that doesn't really get utilized the way it should. Like their output doesn't match the input. And so just being able to improve the different economies that currently exist. But if they can handle their growth, then they should be able to overtake the U.S. in a few years.
Yeah. Well, that will be interesting to see.
Yes, it would be.
Thanks, Rustin, for being here. We appreciate your expertise in this area. And we'll see you next time here on the Morning Market Call.
The Morning Market Call is a production of the Marriott School of Business at Brigham Young University and is made possible by generous donations from Larry Pazgian and Gary Williams. This webcast was produced by Greg Lee, Tim Hart, Julie Kellett, and Jonathan Marugi.